can be on our way.
Recording started.
All right, so welcome everybody to tonight's edition of Construction Management 1. I'll try not to mix up the courses that I teach tonight. It was a slightly better day today. I didn't have any money running on the horses, but you know, I'm sure some of you guys have. Just to go through everything again, we'll just touch on the functionality of Blackboard Collaborate quickly. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can just give me a green tick to show me that you can actually hear me and that everything is okay on your side. All right, so there we go. We've got a few green ticks there, so we're quite happy with that. And everybody is happy with using the interface. All right, so in this case, if you can give me a smiley face or a little hand clapping or applause or anything like that, there we go. All right, so you can use those emoticons anytime, and of course the main feature for tonight is going to be the chat window, or there's only a few of us, so you guys that want to say something or have microphones, just click on the talk button over there, and that will get us on the way. All right, last night I showed you guys in building sector management, those of you guys who were there, the annotation function on the whiteboard. Now I've been having trouble with that last little one there. That's the clip art one. It doesn't work for me at the moment. I'm not sure. It says I had a look at Blackboard Collaborate, the known issues, and it reckons that there's some kind of problem with that specific function. So regrettably, I won't be able to use that tonight. It's full of little funky things. If anybody else can use it, you can just click on it, and it should open up you know, a host of clip art icons, tick boxes and stuff like that. If it doesn't do anything, well, we might just do a check. Can anybody see anything when they click on it? The red cross means no, you cannot see anything, and a green tick will say yes, you can. All right, so Mitchell, can you select any of those icons on the clip art menu there? Oh, there we go. All right, so the next question would then obviously be, are you using a smiley face? Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right, so the next question for you guys would be, are you using Internet Explorer, or are you using Chrome or Mozilla? Which one of the operating systems are you using? All right, so yeah, I'm on Chrome as well, so yeah, that's really weird. Okay, so you guys get to play with that tonight. So for some reason, mine doesn't want to work. Not sure why. All right, so we'll move on again. And just for tonight, those of you guys who did it last night, you can do it again tonight. Let's add some names to the board. Just by using the text window, you can type your name. So I'll just say I am in Sydney. If I can spell tonight. Last night I had trouble spelling. Tonight is slightly better. And let's see where the rest of you guys are. I can see a blue arrow on the board there. I know Charmaine's writing something. There we go. All right, so there we've got somebody in Brisbane. Nobody else seems interested. All right, don't worry. We'll just move on straight from there. All right, so those of you guys who've had a look at the download area, so let's just pull that one over there, and I'll bring that one there. So Brenton is also in Brisbane. Somebody's yellow over there. All right, so that's the Gold Coast. Yep, thanks for that. Hey, Shemaine, you're in the Gold Coast as well with Corey. So yeah, there was a question that I wanted to ask. There's a question. Did you guys manage to download the slides for tonight? Green tick says yes. Red box or red cross means no. All right, so yep, nobody found it. All right, it's on the website. I can send you a quick copy of the file if you like. Let's just see. I'll do that straight away. Let's just give it a second. Let me quickly find it for you. And then you can make notes on it if you like. Just find it. And it will take a second or so just to come through to you, but you should have it in the next couple of minutes or so. In the meantime, I'll just carry on with the lecture as we've planned it. All right, so there we go. So at any point in time, if you have any questions, just put up your hand. All right, remember the little hand icon. You can just click on the hand icon, and the hand icon will then make it, so that I can see that you've got a question, and then we can move on from there, answer your question, and just take it from there. All right. If you don't want to do that, just use the chat window, and we'll go from there. Right, so what have we done so far is we've had a look at the introduction to project management. We're going to talk a little bit about that again tonight. We also had a quick look at the markets and developments, and also last week we threw around some statistics from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. All right, so in the old days I used to get everybody to do a assignment on the statistics, but I've changed it around a little bit, so let's have a quick look at assignment number 1. All right, so the assignments are out now, and I guess you guys will ask a few questions as we go along. I see there's been a bit of talk on the forums, and I see that we have one participant that's already put his name on the Google Doc list there. So assignment number 1, first one there is due in about 3 weeks from now. You'll see there that there's 2 due dates, and the due date's actually not the 22nd, it's actually unofficially the 24th. And the reason for this is because the systems at the university will only allow us to use weekdays when we create the course profiles. But I'm happy to give you guys until the Sunday. I'm in any case not going to look at it on a weekend. All right, so it is a written assignment. It counts about 25% of the work. Yes, Corey, just click on the talk button.
That giving us till the Sunday, is that going to be typical the whole way through the course? Are we going to have that for all the assignments?
Yeah, anything that's on a Friday, you'll see in the Moodle assignment portal. I've already set those dates. So, Corey, you should actually see it already that I've given you that extra few days just by looking at the due date in the Moodle forum or in the Moodle platform. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Every time I do the reviews at the end of the term, it's one of the comments I always put, because obviously we're an external subject that's part-time, so most of the time we're used to study is obviously on the weekend. So having it on the Friday is kind of like asking for a report to be handed in 9 AM on Monday morning. It's really good to have it on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. So if we have a quick look at it, let's just go and see if I can bring up the due dates. I'll just look at let's look at number 3, for instance. I think it says the 3rd of January. That's the one in the course profile. But if you look over here, you can see there I've given you the extra 2 days up until the 5th. So yep, it's right through the course. Trust me, I will not look at your assignment on a weekend. All right. So there's many other things that I can do on a weekend that's much more enjoyable than doing admin. And I know you guys are pressed for time, so there's an extra few days.
Yeah, I've just looked at it too. I can see exactly what you're meaning now. It's very good.
All right, excellent, good stuff. When you do the review, obviously you can put that in there. That's really a nice thing, and that your lecturer walks on water, and in some cases he can actually make water. So yeah, Brenton, just go for it.
So you're looking for 3,000 to 4,000 words, so about 1,000 words per question on that one.
Yeah, that sounds about right. As usual, okay. Remember, I am not going to hunt you down if you overstep the boundary or if you give me too few words. For me, it's all about the functionality and if you're actually answering the question. So if you can answer the question in, say, 800 words, and I've asked for 1,000 words, there's no real, there's not going to be an issue over that. Make sure you satisfy the content of the question. That's the main thing that I'm after.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay, great stuff. All right, so there we go. This assessment item has 4 questions, and I'm sure you guys have all had a look at it. So green tick says yes, you've already had a look at it. just to make sure that you've had a read of it. So yeah, it's not going to be a difficult one. This is, there's two big assessment items in this one. It's the first one and the last one. The rest of it's basically just a walk in the park. You guys will easily be able to complete it. The first one, questions number 1 and 2, we are basically going to cover tonight. Questions number 3 and 4 we are going to cover next week. Right, so we've got those already planned out. I'll have the slides ready for you for question number 3 and 4 in the next couple of days. So well, no, you don't have to save it until the end. You can start straight away. It's sure that if you've got the information is on the website, you've got the textbook already, so there's no reason for you to wait. So yeah, you can just bang on there. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question that you've asked there. So if I'm not, just type away or click on the talk button. Okay. If we look at assignment number 2, easy one. This one is really easy. So the first one is just basically, I'm going to give that one for free. That's just the student introductions. Most of you guys have done that already. Then questions number 2 and 3, that's basically going to be the same type of questions. You can see there's the due dates and everything is already available. I think I've posted the second forum item there. I'm not sure. It's up to you guys to just go out and see if you can respond to that. And then somewhere in the new year, I'll choose a nice article. John, thanks for, is John here tonight? No, John isn't here tonight. He sent me a nice article to look at that we might just use. All right, and then remember right in the beginning, we asked about the quizzes. So we've got 4 quizzes that's going to be part of the program. And these quizzes are going to be focused on basically the textbook. All right, so if you've got the textbook handy, you should be able to answer all the questions. It's going to be straight from there, nothing too difficult. It's open book. You have lots and lots of time to do it, and of course you get 2 tries to do it. So I'll choose the highest result. Right, so you get the benefit of the doubt, get the highest result for your attempts. If it goes really horribly wrong, we might investigate and see if it's necessary to add another try. All right, assessment number 3, I've given you guys another option there. So in the old days, it used to be just a workbook, but for this year, I am going to give you a workbook or a quiz. All right, so you have to nominate if you want to do the workbook or the quiz, and you have to do that at a certain date. I think I've set it out towards the end of December. So it's up to you guys. The quiz questions will be a similar style to the other quizzes that we're going to have, and there will also be 1 or 2 short answer questions in there. Now the very big thing about this one is, of course, you must pass this assignment to pass the course, as always, and then of course remember the penalties on this one. The workbook is overall. All right, so the overall penalties are applied on your overall score. It's not just on the workbook itself. So this one is a dangerous one to miss. So I urge you guys to just get going on it and hand it in. And if you sleep late, you are welcome to do the quiz. The quiz might be quicker to do, might be more difficult. The workbook is, if you really read the workbook, it's difficult to fail the workbook. It's just going to take you a while to do it. All right, and then the other big assignments for this one is obviously number 4. So already there's been a little bit of communication on the website about that. So group assessment, difficult, not really. It's up to you guys. This year I've given you the choice of either creating a brand new business or choosing a business that is ready to fall over, and then come up with a great plan of how to save it and reinvest in it, make it functional and viable again. And that involves, of course, a presentation to the board of investors. So what we'll do is I've got a few people lined up from industry, and they are going to view your presentations and give you marks. Yes, Mitchell.
Oh, hi, Boss. I just wanted to know, are they in groups of 4, this assignment?
You can do 4 or 5. There's 23 people in the class, so I suspect that we might have up to 5 groups. One group will obviously have, 3 or 4 people in, while the majority might have 5. So it's really up to you guys. I'm not going to prescribe anything. I think the only thing that I prescribe is you guys should, as far as possible, try to see if you can get somebody from, a different city or a different role or different position, so that you've got a bit of a mix and match in the team. And that's the only thing that I'm going to prescribe.
Okay, thanks for that. That other post in the chat box is just mostly about content for question 1. Do you want me to save it to the end of the lecture or ask now? Or?
Oh yeah, go for it now. Yeah, just ask it while it's fresh in my mind.
Okay. I was just wondering, as far as the actual presentation for that question 1, is it going to be in the form of like a letter to this client, or like a report structure, or how do you suggest we go about that?
Yes, all right. So question 1 is going to be, that's the one where you have to sell yourself as a project manager. This is a hard-ass client, not, is used to working with architects and representatives and stuff like that. So, yeah, try and see if you can, there's 2 options. Either write a nice letter, see if you can sell yourself, basically a professional CV almost, or the second one is present a report where you say, this is the reasons why project management is better than the conventional approach. All right, so this is, it's not a difficult one. I mean, we've been playing with project management since the late 1980s, so there's a lot of stuff around there. You can, tonight we are even going to have a look at some of the answers to that question. But yeah, it's up to you. So you can choose either do a professional report to say these are the benefits, these are the disadvantages, and this is why it's going to save you money, or do a nice letter to the client and say we're interested in doing your bidding for you. I think we said it's a $22 million project, so it's quite a sizable one for a startup company. So yeah, it's up to you, Mitchell. It's as I said, in this course I'm not going to try and put you guys in a ring fence. I want to see if you can think outside the box, maybe a little bit of creative artistry amongst yourselves. All right, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Might take the letter option, given that we're going to be doing a heap of reports by the look of it.
Yep, that might be a good way. All right, so we've handled basically all the questions. I'm sure as the term progresses, we're going to have more and more questions about the assessment items. So don't worry about asking everything tonight. So if you guys see if you've got any other questions during the term, it's fine if you ask it at any point in time, either through one of these sessions, or if we put it just in the questions and answers forum. All right, so tonight what we're going to do is we're going to look further into project management, and we're going to talk about the industry stakeholders and also the other people that play roles in the industry. So we are basically going to just touch on it. So we might just jump off there, and using the chat function, why do you think project management is such a big thing in the world at the moment? Why would you, maybe just write one sentence there in your in the text box using the text functionality. Why do you guys think that project management is a good thing to use? All right, so there's one on the board there talking about time and cost. So yep, it's always going to be there's always going to be time, cost, and quality. That's the 3 things that we also have there. All right, so there we go, Michael. Plan, coordinate, execute projects. Yep. Yeah, those architects. Yes, I know about those architects. I've worked with a few architects. I think not too long ago in the around the water cooler forum, I posted a little video about the architects. I'll go and see if I can find that again for you guys. But yeah, it's basically a collection of those. So if we look at the overview for project management, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on these basics. You guys have the textbooks, you've got the resource material, but the main thing is always going to be this little triangle there where we've got time and cost, and then of course the other one, time, cost, and quality, is normally at the bottom. In this case, we're going to say All right, so how do we overview or produce an overview of project management in the principal point of view and not in terms of a project? So it brings into a matter of HRM, so human resources management. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on again. And then, of course, it's all about working with other people's resources. Resources are always scarce, especially on projects. So projects typically start too late, have too little funds, and have way too little time. So those are the typical problems that we face in terms of projects. When we look at project management, what's the characteristics of project management in general? All right, so we need to have something. We need to achieve a specific goal. So there's different ways of looking at it. So let's say, for instance, the development of the new Toyota Land Cruiser. Is that a project or is that an ongoing objective? So the development of the new Toyota Land Cruiser, would you guys say that is a ongoing objective or is that a project? What do you guys think? All right, so there we go. It's a project. So yep, you guys all reckon it's a project. So let's look at it from a different point of view. What about the manufacturing of the 2013 quota of Toyota Land Cruisers? All right, so the moment we start talking about doing the same thing over and over again, right, not into development, let's say we've got the recipe for the Land Cruiser, then it becomes an ongoing objective. All right, so in that case, it's no longer a project. All right, so important, have the objective. The objective is to create that new car and have a start and end date. All right, so most projects that we work on will have a start and end date. If they don't have a start or a defined start and end date, obviously we'll call it something different. All right, because those are just the characteristics for a project. It's an ongoing concern, an operational concern, if there are no updates or no end dates and no starting dates. All right, so there's always going to be limits. I'm just going to drag a box around the word limits there because it's not only funding limits, it's typically funding, time, resources, everything that you can think of. There's always going to be limits. And the other thing that we have to think about is, of course, it's going to cut across multiple lines. All right, so we'll look at the functional lines a little bit later on. All right, so the consume is quite a harsh word there. Sounds like we're eating people. In some projects, you might want to eat people, but yeah, not while we're working for the university, because all university lecturers are considered to be koalas, therefore we cannot touch them, although I might differ on Friday afternoons. All right, so if we look at project management, two different areas there, planning and, of course, monitoring. So why would we do planning? All right, so we know that we've got some kind of requirement that we have to achieve. We've got an objective, and we, of course, have to plan for it. So you guys know, for instance, that you have to submit your assignment on the 24th of November, which isn't too far away. Therefore, you're going to start planning and seeing how you can work it out. So you've got basically 3 weekends left, a few weekdays that you might get early from work, and you know more or less what the quantity of work is going to be, so you start planning and you say, all right, so for the next 3 weeks, from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'm going to work on my assessment items, because Saturday nights I like going out and having pizza with my significant other. Just listen to that political correctness there. And then, of course, you'll be able to finish your task on time. So why would we want to monitor a project? Any ideas? Anybody in the chat room, in the chat box? Why would we want to monitor the progress on a project? Yeah, we track the progress. Yep. Well, Brenton, no extra points for you because tracking progress is right there on the board, so nothing for you.
Sorry about that, just saw it.
Yeah. Thanks for your participation there. All right, so we ensure that goals are met. Yep, that's fine. The other thing is we are trying to set that baseline. All right, so and this is something that you guys have experienced all firsthand, because I'm sure you've had classes with my predecessors and some of my colleagues where you've submitted assessment items and you did not receive the feedback in time for the next assessment item, therefore you couldn't adjust your performance. All right, so that's typically what we want to do, is we want to set that baseline so that we can do the improvements, ensure that the goals are met, and then of course, thanks Brenton, tracking the progress on that. All right, so if we look at project management, and I just copied this from our friend Harold Kersner. He worked on a project with me many, many years ago when he was still a little bit younger, about 15 years or so younger. And basically, it comes down to, playing the game. It's a game of chess that we play with resources. We've got chess pieces that we are moving around, and hopefully it's not like playing chess on the Titanic. Right? So if you ever find yourself on a project where you feel that you're moving around the resources, but the inevitable goal is that you're going to fail, see if you can get out. So there's interesting research about the duration of project managers' tenure on projects. We'll talk about that a little bit later or maybe next week. Interesting stuff. All right, so it's all about, remember what I said, moving chess pieces around, playing the game. The person who knows the game the best, he at the end wins, and if it's moving around chess pieces on the Titanic, get out as soon as you can. So one of the issues with project management is, of course, that we might have multiple levels of reporting. So we might find ourselves in an area where we have to report to quite a number of people. So we might have a project manager, a line manager, and we'll talk about the different organizational structures when we talk about matrix and traditional and classical reporting lines later tonight. The issue with having multiple reporting lines is, of course, you have multiple bosses, and we know what they say about having too many people in the kitchen. Not always a good idea. So start thinking about a project that you guys have been working on where you've had some issues working with multiple bosses. So in this case, just on this diagram, we've got the project sponsor on the one side, we've got the general manager on the other side, another level of control sitting over there, there's our project manager, and then of course our project manager is going to have various assistants depending on what kind of project it is. So if it's a multidisciplinary IT project, for instance, you might have one looking at the financials of the project, and somebody else looking at the logistics, and somebody else looking at the project systems for that specific project. And then on top of that all is going to be our client, and he's going to have some line management in there as well. So at the end of the day, it becomes really an interesting affair. All right, so we all know that project management has been proven. We spoke about that right at the beginning, by setting the goals, by knowing how to plan for it, and by doing that continuous improvement exercise, we can actually increase productivity on that on a project. So it's not only, and that's the nice thing about construction managers in general. So when you guys grow tired of the industry, nothing stops you from going and doing something completely different. Project managers from the construction industry are typically people that are very adaptable. So you guys can go and maybe have a play in the financial sector, insurance, property. I see quite a number of people, Shamaine, have mentioned something about interest in property valuation and property management. So yeah, there's quite a bit going on there at the moment. So many doors open for you guys. So there's our three lines or three legs of the management quandary that we have. And basically, if we look at this little chair there, there's a project, and this project has three legs that it stands on. Now, you might argue that a three-legged chair is the most stable structure that you can get, because even though all three legs aren't equal length, it will still balance. But if you have a chair with four legs, of course, if one leg is not the same length as the others, you're going to have a wobbly chair. So there's some food for thought for you guys to think about. In terms of the organizational structure and behavior, also very important, it's about the people skills. So next question for you guys. what is better, having a project manager with tremendous technical skill or having a project manager that knows how to work with people? All right, so project skill and technical ability or people skills? What do you guys think? All right, so yeah, working with people. All right, so I definitely agree with that. There is some validation in having some technical skill, but at the end of the day, a project manager is not really going to do the technical stuff on the project. If you get involved in the technical stuff, you may be going in too deep, right? So make sure that you step out of the detail. All right, so let's have a quick look at some of the project manager's roles. And this is by no means an extent or an exhaustive list. This is just a few things that we came up with this afternoon when I made the slides. So basically, again, there's the first one, negotiations. I think in my project management days, I spent about, I don't know, 75 to 80% of the time just talking to other people, just negotiating, trying to sell them stuff that they don't really need or trying to buy stuff that they didn't really want to sell. And then, you know, taking it from there. So funding and finances, always a battle. No matter what anybody says, it's always going to be the bottom line. Finances is always going to be there. So if we look at a project, when is the most expensive time of a project? Is it right in the beginning when we're still planning it? Is it during the execution phase? Or is it maybe after go live? All right, so what do you guys say? When's the most expensive time in terms of a project? Is it right in the beginning, planning phase, sort of towards the middle, execution phase, or towards the end? So Mitchell has already said post-project. All right, so now that you've said post-project, you have to say why is it so? Why is that the most expensive period of a project? So there's good reason for your answer, and I'm sure you're going to get that right. And Charmaine, the same with you. You said in the middle. Now, I think the reason why you're saying it's in the middle is because that's when we do the execution. We spend, of course, all the money and everything. So, yeah, there we go, Brenton. You've got something along the lines, paying the final payments, retentions and loans. Yeah. What about if we suffer a delay on a project? All right, so what happens if we suffer a delay on a project and the project is, for instance, a beer manufacturing plant or a beer brewery? All right, so obviously it's going to cost the owner a lot more if the plant does not become productive. All right, so the loss of production then starts adding on top of the mistakes that we have to correct. So yeah, Corey, you've got a few ideas there as well. And then of course the cost of making changes goes tremendously high towards the end of the project. So we'll talk about that in a future lecture as well. All right. So why do we need project management? Now typically we've got three different silos, you know. So we've got our top management. They have their own idea, and then we've got another bunch of people sitting in the middle, and then we sort of have the people towards the end that make stuff happen. All right, so there's always going to be disconnects with those, and of course we've got these management silos or functional gaps between the different functions. So we've got finance, marketing, human resources, the 8 different management functions that we typically see in an organization. And then, of course, that leads to a little bit of a disjointed organization over there with people going off on their own tangents, especially on big projects. We might see different ways of approaching that. So we'll talk about the solution to overcoming all of these different silos and disjointed sort of business units. Let's call them business units. So if we look at the benefits for project management, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. Who says project management saves money? Give us a green tick if you say yes. Give us a red tick if you say no. Right, who says it saves money? Right, so why does it save money? Right, so now all of you guys, there we go. Too late to change. I saw that green tick there. Why does it save money? Why do we say project management saves money? Is it because we learn from our previous mistakes, or is it perhaps because we plan better. It forces us, if we have a project management system in place, it forces us to plan. That might be one of the options that we've got there. That might be a reason for it to, you know, give us better results. All right, so I see there's quite a number of you guys typically typing out your messages. So learn from our previous mistakes, and the PM has some incentives to come in under budget. Yes, of course, there's always that the money issue is going to drive our project manager. And yeah, that's right. So bad management, well, we're basically throwing good money after bad money if we don't manage that process. The other thing is, of course, what I've got there on the sheet, the early identification of problems and risk, the functional responsibilities. Now, functional responsibilities is a major issue on large projects. It can cost you a lot of money if you don't manage it. Right? It will run away with you, especially if you have you know, multiple subcontractors or contractors on site. Let's say, for instance, you're building a golf course, and you've got a golf course contractor on site, but you also have a landscaping contractor on site. You have to be very, very careful about where you draw the line for where's the end of the golf course and where's the beginning of the landscaping architect or landscaping contractor's work, because otherwise those two will sort of create a gray area and no grass will grow in that area. Yeah, and then of course estimating, we learn from our mistakes. Those are just the normal stuff that we expect from project management. So while we're going through these things, you should already start thinking about that first question in the assessment item. What are the benefits that we're going to overcome? Why do we think about it? One that's not really on the board here is, of course, communication. Right? So communication is a big thing. Project management systems, and the reason why we have project management systems is because it forces us to communicate. All right, so what happens? All right, so let's ask a question. Green tick, who is in a relationship? Green tick, who's in a relationship? All right, so yep, there we go, married or anything like that. And oh, so everybody, gee, that's amazing. All right, so well done, everyone. So what happens when you stop communicating with your partner? All right, so what happens when you stop communicating with your partner? So Brenda, you've got a red cross there. I'm not sure what that means. So yeah, no, it's not about the uni work. No, definitely not. I'm not going to repeat that one, but I might use that one, Mitchell, to blackmail you a little bit later on, okay? Yeah, there we go. You end up in the doghouse. It might be that there's a suspension of services, and you know, you don't necessarily want the suspension of services in that thing. Yeah, there we go. So depending on what kind of services is provided, of course. All right. So common obstacles that we have in projects, typically complexity. It starts playing a role. You know, so if we talk about the greenfields projects or brownfield projects. Does everybody know what a greenfield and a brownfield is? Green tick says yes. Obviously, there's going to be differences between a brownfield and a greenfield project. For instance, a brownfield might have existing services, and a greenfield might just be an open field where it's nice and easy. If you have to do excavations, there's nothing holding you back, so it's easy for you to do. Another question is, of course, let's say, for instance, you've got a $50 million housing complex to construct, or a $50 million gas to liquid plant. Right. So obviously, the housing complex is not going to be so complex as the gas to liquid plant, because it's just the nature of the project that you're going to work on. The other problem that we might see in project management is the customer. Right. Our client, our employer. You'll see many times I'll refer to them as employers, and that's just because I used to work with the NEC and we used to call our customers or clients employers. But typically, our customers don't know how to get where they want to be. Right? So they typically just don't have a clue about how to execute their projects, and therefore there's a lot of changes and scope changes, scope creep and scope growth. And remember, what's the difference between the two? Scope creep basically is unauthorized, while scope growth is authorized. So if you're a project manager, keep your hand or your finger firmly on that. All right, so organizational restructuring, all of those obstacles, you guys can obviously also read the textbook. There's some more information about the common obstacles in terms of project management. All right, so if we look at the classical management scheme, there's our 5 classical items when it comes to management: planning, organization, staffing, control, and then of course directing. So a quick question there on the board: which of those items are typically not handled by our project manager? All right, so what I'll do is I'll delete the red line around it, give you guys an opportunity to draw a block or point a finger to what you think is the right one. Alternatively, in the chat window, which one of these do you think is not normally performed by our project manager? All right, I can see Michael's doing something there in the check in the chat box. Anybody else? Any other takers? Which of these 5? All right, so yeah, there we go. We've got a few fingers pointing towards staffing. All right, so staffing is a good one. And yeah, all right, so definitely that would be the one that I would choose as well. Typically the staffing issue would be done by an area outside of the project manager's control. All right, so let's have a quick look at resources. Again, this is just a basic, very, very basic list over there. Money, which one is missing? Which one is missing from the resources list there? All right, so give us an idea which one of those, or which one is missing that we see on any type of project, and is it really a resource? Anyone? Oh, no takers for this one. What do you guys think is, what about, let's put it over there, let's see if I can put that one there. What about time? Do you guys think time is a resource? Or is time a limitation? All right, so Brenton, you reckon it's a resource. Quite a few people say it's a resource. Yep, both resource and limitation. All right, yep, and we can see, yep, limitation coming through there. All right, so, okay, let's move along to our next slide there, integration management. This is again one of, well, those of you guys who are familiar with the project management body of knowledge, remember this is the 9th area, the 9th knowledge area of project management according to the Project Management Institute. So this is where we take all the different components and we mix them up together. Think about a gearbox in a big car or in your auto. You've got different gears, and of course you've got the engine on the one side, so lots and lots of input over there, and it all gets mixed together, and at the end we see the wheels turning. All right, so that's a very bad example, but it's the only one I could come up with at 9:45 at night. So obviously in terms of construction we'll have our inputs, all right, so we've got some funding, material, equipment, all of those things in there. We've got the soft stuff as well, people, all right, so they're always going to be there. Then of course we mix it all up together, and this is basically where our project manager starts playing a really important role, integration management. And this is where he takes everybody out to lunch and to dinner, make sure the wheels are greased, and if you're a politician, maybe you can get a union credit card out of this process. All right, so just be careful that you keep good notes of it, because it might come back later on to bite you. All right, and then of course at the end we see there's some products coming out. In our case, there might be something like a construction project, building, house, anything like that, or a plant. If we're into infrastructure management, we might see a bridge or a plant or a factory or something like that coming out at the end of the day. Now, if we start looking at the high-level stakeholders, our project sponsor, so obviously there's going to be different stakeholders in our project. Each of those guys have a different role to play and at a different point in time. So next week what we'll do is we'll look at perhaps something like a stage gate approach, and how a stage gate approach can assist the project to run smoother. It's basically a planning and management tool. All right, so it's just another component of our project management scheme of things. But you can see there we've got the different roles. So there's our project management team down there. I might just quickly change color to make it blue, and let's see if I can get a blue line over there. Yep, there we go. All right, so our project management team sits over there, and that will comprise of different people. So we might have an engineer in there, cost engineer, some designers, some quantity surveyors, other special areas, professionals that's going to work in that team. Quite a number of contract administrators, I would guess, would sit in there, and of course our project manager manages that team, takes care of the quality control of the performance of that team. All right, and then of course there's input from our senior management or our project sponsor, and of course also the lower management that's going to take care of that. And the relationship over there, I've given you guys a few basic activities that these guys are going to go through between our project manager and project sponsor. So you guys can have a look at that. All right, so one of the key things about project management is that when a project starts, obviously we typically only see the tip of the iceberg. All right, so this is now where most of the things start going wrong, and we sometimes have issues because we did not understand the scope of the project, we did not understand the people that we work with, or we just didn't do our homework. All right, so at the end of the day, it's all about understanding the scope and the objective of the project that we're going to try and achieve. So this is the normal one, the iceberg one. We've got a different one that I used to use, and I used to just call this the ears. Normally it's only the ears of the hippo sticking out. So I'm not sure if this is an Australian one. Definitely this one we used in Africa quite a lot. Hippos are responsible for I think the highest number of deaths in Africa. Yeah, and the same with crocs, especially the salties. I wanted to go and do some camping up north, and I was told not to sleep on the ground because I might be eaten. So I've invested in a rooftop tent just for that reason. I'll still need to plan my my trip up there. All right, so of course when we look at the rest of our project or hippo, you can see it becomes quite a bigger animal at the end of the day. All right, so that's basically the first part of the lecture that we wanted to look at. So we've basically now reached the end of where we wanted to say question 1 ends. So do we have any questions from anybody at this point in time? If you don't have any questions, just give me a green tick or maybe a red one is better. Red tick means, red cross means no questions. Or alternatively, you can just type it into the chat window and I'll jump onto your questions straight from there. All right, so I can see Michael, you typing out. What do we do for referencing if we write a letter? Yeah, that's a really good question. No referencing in that case. All right, so but then your letter has to be really good. All right, so in your letter, if you are going to call up some statistics or anything like that, obviously you will have a short reference list. But yeah, if it's a professional letter, yeah, that's really a good question there. I didn't really think about that one. So yeah, you called me out on that one. Some space cadet points there for you for jumping onto that one. So if you write a letter, then if you write a letter, yeah, it becomes problematic. So think about it. Might save you some time. All right, so let's move on to the second stuff. We're basically halfway through what we wanted to do tonight. We're not doing too badly for time. Actually, we're doing terrible for time. It's almost an hour since we started. But now what we're going to look at is basically the soft stuff, organizational issues. So this relates to the second question of assignment number 1. All right, so this is where we're going to start looking at the organizational structures. We're not going to touch on too much stuff over there. You guys have the textbook available, and you can go and do some reading as well. Also, on the Moodle website today, I did load some additional reading for you, about 18 pages or something like that, which I wrote at some point in my life about organizational structures and teams and stuff like that. So if you're struggling to sleep tonight, just download a copy of that, and you should have no problems at all. So when we look at the speed of maturity, and what we're doing here is, of course, we're looking at two different organizations. So one organization is one that's sort of taken project management on board, and we are looking at another one that says no, these are not project management organizations. All right. So, and also then, of course, you get the hybrids. That's sort of halfway between the two. The Toyotas, those Prius cars, that can't really make up their mind if they want to use fuel or electricity, and we do get some of those organizations as well. So the big question that you have to ask is, of course, what do you do when you see a Prius on the highway? And I'll wait for you guys to respond to that. So the question is, what do you do when you see a Prius on the highway? And this obviously will depend on your political inclination. So back to the work, project-driven organizations, you'll see, yeah, well, or you can just gear down and accelerate, make sure that you burn a 5 or, at least 5 or so liters extra in fuel. No, just kidding. So when we look at these project-driven organizations, you can see there's a difference between the speed of maturity, the competitiveness, and of course the internal efficiencies and effectiveness, as opposed to our sort of traditional organizations. So the non-project driven organizations, they have a different mindset. They look at things differently, so their internal efficiencies are a little bit higher because they have to, otherwise they won't survive, while our project-driven organizations are more aligned with our project outcomes. So project-driven organizations, different kettle of fish, and we'll start looking at the different organizational structures, and then we'll start thinking about what's the best one for a project-driven organization and what's the best one, let's say, for a non-project driven organization. So give us an example of a non-project driven organization. Which organization or organizations, might be a concern, business, bank, anything like that, what do you guys think is an example of a non-project driven organization? And in the same side, what's an example of a project driven organization? That question is a lot easier than the first one. Any takers for that question? Or has everybody left? Might be that everybody's left. So, yeah, project-driven organizations, obviously. Yeah, Brenton, go for it.
I was going to say construction companies are project-driven organizations.
Yeah, there we go. That's the easy one. So any kind of project, any kind of construction company would be project-driven, because we've got business coming in, we've got defined start and end dates. Charities might be non-project driven organization. Yes, thanks, Michael. Banks might be another one. Something that is a rolling concern, right? So a rolling concern, selling toilet paper. Everybody uses toilet paper, and it's sort of a it's a really lucrative business. You don't want to go without it, and there's how much technology do you want to really build into toilet paper? So it's it's just a rolling concern, and hopefully you don't run out of it. So there's two examples that you guys can think about it. So when we think about project management methodology, obviously we've got these 4 different forces working in on it. So we've got the tasks on the one side, or the objectives, our project sitting over here. So we'll draw a box around that. So that would be the things that we want to achieve. Our resources and tools sits over there. That's going to assist us in doing the project. Our people is most probably going to be the most important resource or input into the methodology, because they make stuff happen. All right, so projects don't happen on their own. We can buy and have the resources, but without people to move them around and actually put them in place, nothing much is going to happen with them. So if we look at something, let's call it resistance to change. This is just from the textbook. Different organizations, sales, marketing, finance, procurement. Procurement is a really important one for us because we do a lot of procurement in the construction industry. So we have to think about how resistant are we to change. So where do you guys think the construction industry fits in? Are we resistant to change, or are we open to change? All right, so what do you guys think? Green tick says yes, we are open to change. Red tick says no, we're not so open to change. We are slow to move. Or, yeah, Brenton?
It's a bit of both. There's a lot of resistance to change, especially in large organisations if it's been untried and untested, but at the same time there is a movement of change by using iPads and 3D formulas or working around sites and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of both. I may do both at the same time.
All right, yeah, that's really a good approach. So a typical example would be where one construction company takes over another one, and you'll see quite a bit of that happening. Quite a bit of that happened in the last couple of years. Lend-Lease and those guys. You'll remember those mergers or takeovers, and obviously when a smaller company gets taken over, the process has changed, and there might be changes to the way people do stuff. I mean, in my experience as a young site agent on site, running around, doing bricklaying and digging holes for foundation, I had a foreman on site, a number of foremen actually, and I mean, you could just not tell these guys anything because they've been doing it the same way for the last 50 years, and they were not open to any kind of new suggestions. So yeah, it depends on where exactly you pitch yourself. So like Brenton said, yep, it's a mixture of both, but it's more importantly where you pitch yourself in terms of the company. All right, so if you're low down, typically you're going to have a lot of resistance if you want to install change, especially if you're a junior staff member. But if the higher you go up, the more, or the less resistance you might get from people trying to please you. All right, so if you're the CEO and you want to install some change, obviously it might go easier than trying to be a clerk trying to do the same. All right, so if we look at change, there's the first step, denial, and denial is not a river in Egypt. We can typically use that when we talk about diet and stuff like that as well. No, I'm not overweight, and no, I don't have an alcohol problem at all. So that's typically where we start using those things. But yes, denial is the first step, and this is typically where people say, no, we don't need to change. This new system that we're going to implement is not going to make things easier. And then it leads on to resistance, where we say it might be passive resistance. We force mistakes to go into the system, or we alternatively cause it to fall over. And as soon as you pass through those steps, and remember, these are just examples. There might be a few steps in between. So there might be a step over here that says termination, or a step over there that says management encouragement. All right, so any of those would work. As soon as people start playing with it, seeing what it can do, there's a little bit of an uptake, people become positive, and then again the resistance down there is because they realize that they can be replaced. All right, so there might be some restructuring in the organization, making it more fluent, making it more productive, and then of course whoever is left is going to support it at the end of the day. All right, so there's a really rough look at it. Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, I'm a supervisor for a ceiling testing contractor on a Lend-Lease job, so it's interesting that you mentioned Lend-Lease. And talking about resistance, you should see the paranoia and the arse covering going on now that they're finally trying to merge the three companies. And obviously the group of companies, Lend-Lease, Boulderstones and Abbey Group, are all running out of work, so they're all ultra paranoid and covering each other's asses to try and all become one of that big structure.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, there's a number of students at the uni that work for, those companies. So every now and again I get these phone calls, and it's interesting to see the development. And it's, I mean, it's going to, if we have this discussion a year from now, it's going to be interesting to finally see what the outcome is. Is it going to be this huge, humongous, big company? Because I can tell you now, the guys at Lend-Lease also don't know what the answers are. I mean, they are, they've caught a number. It's like the dog that chases the fuel tanker, and then the fuel tanker stops, and then the dog doesn't quite know exactly how to handle the fuel tanker. So, not 100% the right analogy, but you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because obviously I'm on a Lend-Lease job, so you think them being the parent company, they should be the ones that are the least paranoid of all, but they're all pretty worried.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, many of these small companies, they might have different, techniques and methodologies in place that's a little bit more cutthroat, but can save money, So there might be some heads rolling, might be some people coming up from those other organizations that do things better and, are better managers. And I think it's just natural. I mean, the university just went through this. We also lost 163 people, so it happens.
Well, any big organisation gets a lot of dead wood in them, and Lend-Lease is not immune to that. I've been on, their job sites for about the last 3 years, so, it's definitely there. There's lots of dead wood, and they all cover each other's asses, so it's probably, in one respect, as much as they're all paranoid, it's probably the best thing that could happen to the company, because they're picking the best team to move forward out of 3 different companies.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's definitely true. The deadwood argument, I agree with that. And I mean, that's, earlier tonight I spoke about the koalas. I've got some deadwood at the university as well. But it's really difficult sometimes to get rid of the deadwood. You sort of have to wait for the place to burn down before you can see the green roots coming out again. All right, so interesting. Thanks for that, Corey. Right. All right, so let's move on into your organizational structures, and this is basically one part of the question that we have in question number 2. I think I've got something about the organizational structures, and you guys have to report on what's the best one. So the real answer in terms of organizational structures, do you think there is a best or ideal structure for a specific business? So let's think about a construction organization. Would you say that a flat structure is better? Do you say that a structure with many levels is better? What do you guys think? Do you guys know what the difference is between traditional and matrix organizations? Any takers for those? Red cross means no, not 100% sure of it. Green tick or chat button means that you have a fair understanding of it. All right, so a few red crosses. We'll talk about those just now. All right, so let's jump straight into that. The organizational structures is basically how we manage our business, how we put our business together, and we'll look at that. Where's the CEO? Where's the chief financial officer? Where's the project manager? How many project managers do we have? Is it possible to run a number of projects at the same time? So maybe at this point in time, another question for you guys. What is the maximum number of projects that any project manager can run? Right. What's the maximum number of projects that a project manager can realistically run? Right. So remember, we're thinking about the construction industry. We've got a few high-powered construction managers. What do you guys think? What's the number? Is there a magic number? All right, so yeah, it depends on how capable they are. I mean, that is a really politically middle sort of answer there. Yeah, complexity has some implication there, size of the project. All right, so is there something like a small project? Can we say there's something like a small project? Or are all projects more or less the same? If you think about the documentation that you have to do, let's say you work for a big company, you have to go through the stage gate approach, you have to fill out all the documents, you have to do all the OSH Act stuff. So at the end of the day, I'm not so sure about, if there is something like a small project. Yeah, there's similar work for every project. So yeah, the effort it's like presenting a course. There's some basic effort, creating the course profile, getting that stuff going, and then of course just the number of students is the only variable that we get. In terms of construction, talking about the complexity, is it a cookie cutter project or is it something that's like a first of a kind? So a cookie cutter is something that we just continuously roll over and over again, while a first of a kind is somewhat more complex to think about it. So in real terms, there's no real right structure for any organization. Right, there's only structures that work slightly better or structures that work completely worse, and the same when we start thinking about procurement strategies and stuff like that. So next week we're going to talk about question number 3 and question number 4 about selecting procurement strategies and selecting project criteria that's really important for us. So we'll find that at the end of the day, you can execute a project really badly and it will still be a success, or you can execute a project really well and it will be a much better success. But at the end of the day, it might still work. Right? So the way that you approach it, of course, it's going to be an influencing factor. Right, so previously there's all the things that you guys mentioned in the chat window, the number and types of projects, the duration or the complexity, and of course the specialization that is required for that specific project. So when we look at the transition of companies into project management, these are the typical issues that we have to think about. So thinking about your question number 1, these are the issues that your client might be suffering from. Right? So there might be a lack of trust, or he might have some power issues. Right? Remember, these guys are typically, clients are typically control freaks, and they're insecure about handing over stuff and then delegating. Remember the difference between accountability and responsibility, and the delegation thereof. So remember, you can delegate responsibility, but accountability will always stay with the accountable person. All right, so another issue, we spoke about communication earlier on. All right, so what happens when communication breaks down? Suspension of services. All right, and then of course, internal competition. Maybe internal competition might not be an issue for you in question number 1. All right, so a few things that we can mention about our project management company. Yep, it's very committed. The communication processes are all really slick. We know what we're doing. And of course, because we've been doing this for so long, we can anticipate all the changes. We know how to handle the risk and insecurities. All right, so there's a few hints for you guys to think about. So now, when we start jumping into the organizational structures, there's a few of them that we're going to look at tonight. And the 3 basic ones, the 3 important ones that's all around the show is the traditional, classical, or functional. So that's the first one, traditional, functional, or classical. Second one is going to be our project or product-oriented structure, and then of course the matrix. All right, so the matrix, it's almost as complex as that movie. I mean, you sort of have to watch it 3 or 4 times before you understand exactly where the white rabbit is going, and then of course we get a strong and a weak matrix as well. So depending on which one you've selected will influence exactly how far that white rabbit can run. Does everybody understand the connotation to the white rabbit? Green tick says yes. Red cross means absolutely no idea. All right, so there we go. We've got at least one person that's seen the movie Matrix. All right, so there we go. Nobody else. All right. I'll have to work on my jokes. All right, so there's our question again. What's the best structure for our organization? All right, so let's have a quick look at a traditional structure. All right, so this is the oldest one that's been around forever, and this has just grown out of the way that we've done business for so many years. It's basically a good level for control, or a good functional structure for control. Because it's got a very simple structure, it's capable of managing conflicts, almost in an autocratic sense of management. All right, because there's a one way, it's a pyramid going up. Conflicts sort of get solved from the top down. All right, so it can be very autocratic, and of course there we can see in the next one, resolution of conflicts by the upper level. All right, so if we do struggle around the bottom, the top management might force a decision down. Now, we might not always agree with that decision, but because they sit on top of us, you know, we sort of have to follow that. So when you work in an organization that follows the traditional functional structure, be careful with what you say, because the toes you step on today might be connected to the asses you have to lick tomorrow. So that's just, you know, how it works. And there you can see there's a traditional or functional classical management structure. So we've got our general manager, or our sort of company CEO sits on top, and he's got the different divisions, each of those management functions, engineering, production, marketing. We might have different projects over there. We might have different divisions at that level. So this is just an example of what we can expect in terms of a traditional functional or classical management structure. All right, so who works in an organization, a construction organization that's got this type of structure? Anyone? All right, so yeah, there we go. Brent, you used to work in one like that. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, that's also fine. I'm sure we'll find a structure that is applicable to exactly how you guys do business. All right, and then of course, yeah, Charmaine, not as big. This is typically, these days, we'll see this this functionality, this traditional classical functional structure in small startups. All right, so in small startups, this is where we'll see this type of structure. And let's have a quick look at the advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, in your textbooks, you'll find some more information of this, and these are just ones that I came up with a while ago. Good for cost control. We can have a single line of responsibility because it's really, really easy to define the responsibility over there. And, you know, there's only one person at the top. So the bad thing about these structures, of course, it becomes a bottleneck. If you have only one manager at the top that has to approve all of the decisions, it becomes a bit of a delay when that person is overloaded or too busy, and it leads to some delays down the street. All right, so let's have a quick look at the next one. This one is a departmental project management scheme. So we might have a divisional manager, and there might be different departments or manufacturing areas underneath each of those, and each of them might have different sections underneath again. There's a number of variations to this one as well, and you can see there's our project leaders sitting on the side there, and the project leaders are basically going to influence those guys over there. So they are going to influence them, and they are going to manage that process underneath over there. So that's an easy way of looking at the departmental project management. So this one is obviously not used as frequently in Australia. Where do you guys think, what kind of industry do you think this might suit best? Any ideas? Might not be construction. What do you guys think? Where would this work? Mining, manufacturing, yep, there we go. Pharmaceuticals, all right, so pharmaceuticals might be also a good idea. And then mining, yeah, we can have a big mining company that has different organizations in their stable, all right, and they might be responsible for number of different mines, for instance. All right, so there we go, and manufacturing, of course, different products, right, and similar with pharmaceuticals. All right, so there's our structure in terms of, let's say, for instance, we really want to speed up the process. We might choose an expediter type approach, and this is where we've got a division that takes care of specific actions that's within that division. All right, so that means that the piping and HVAC and chemical, all of that stuff forms part of our engineering division, and of course on top of these guys there's going to sit another structure that's going to take care of the management from top down. All right, so this might be part of a bigger structure. You can see there's our communication lines, so the formal authority reporting lines, those are the ones coming from the top down, but they can also report within the separate divisions, making the information flow a little bit easier in terms of just communication between the different divisions. So when we start looking at the project coordinator, and this one is very similar to a procurement strategy that we're going to talk about next week, where we, let's call it an EPCM, right, to engineer, procure for and on behalf of, and construction management. Right, so EPCM looks similar to this. We'll have our managers sitting over there, and then of course we'll have our project managers sitting over there, and the project manager is going to have some influence over exactly how the work is being done. All right, so in real terms, if we really think about it, these two guys are going to be connected over there. The project manager is going to be on staff for our divisional manager. All right, so it's going to be a specific post, a specific focused environment. All right, so on the slide there, a few weaknesses that we've located or identified for the project coordinator type role. It's basically, it comes down to a reluctance to sharing the authority. All right, so this is one of the issues that we might run into. It's difficult to let go, especially if you're an autocratic project manager. So when you find yourself in this situation, make sure that you manage that process reasonably well. All right, so if we move on, let's have a quick look at the pure project structure. And once again, I'll give you a few examples to look at. There's our very, very simple structure. We've got our client or general manager sitting on top, and we've got a number of project managers. And each of these project managers then have basically the same functions underneath. All right? So you might have engineering, manufacturing, cost engineering, design, anything like that, HVAC, piping, anything like that that you might fill in there, and that will give you basically a repetition or a duplication of services. All right, so if we look at the pure project structure, what do you guys think is one of the negatives for a pure project structure? Anyone? Let's think about some of the advantages. What is a disadvantage? What is an advantage of that? Yeah, Brenton, go for it.
Disadvantage would be that the manufacturing through the different projects has no quality control between them, which is why you use the matrix style, so that they all right, so that's similar control.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so quality control might become an issue. What else? What else do we see? Just by looking at the diagram, what else do we see? What I might do is I might jump to the next slide while you guys think about it. This slide might give you a little bit more of an idea of what I'm after. Let's see if I can give you a hint. So we're looking at a number of functions across each of the projects. What do you guys think might be the reason for that? Yep, reporting structure. Yeah, you've got not so much reporting structure. You almost had me there. I wanted to give it to you, but I decided, no, that's not the answer I wanted. Sorry, Michael. What am I after? All right, so I'm after something specific. All right, so think about it. Yeah, there we go. So Brenton's got it, duplication. So it's basically the duplication of functions that we've got. And so Mitchell, are you with us at the moment? Because I see you've got some connection problems there, up and down at the moment. Can you give us a sign, maybe a green tick or something like that? Slight delay on your line. All right, so moving right along. Yes, there are duplication of, yeah, all over the place again. You'll have to work around your connection. I'll see if I can give you a call tomorrow and see what's wrong with your connection. All right. So if we look at the advantages and disadvantages, so yes, of course, there's going to be cost because we are duplicating all of those functions, and that's going to have an influence on our project cost at the end of the day. It makes it a little bit quicker. All right, so if we have those in-house resources in each of those divisions, it makes it a lot easier for us to respond because we just have it on tap. We don't have to wait for resources to clear other projects out of the way before they can allocate time to our projects. And then, of course, also the communication is very interactive between the different levels. All right, so because it's in-house, it's basically a silo approach. It becomes a lot easier for us to work with that. So one of the disadvantages over there is technology suffers. So why do you guys think technology will suffer in a pure project structure? All right, so the question is, why do you think technology will suffer in a pure project structure? Just to jog your memory, I'll put back the example that we have over there. I'll maybe take away the red lines to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. So does anybody want to venture an idea? Why would technology suffer? I'll maybe add a few lines over here. Pure communication, yes, there we go, pure communication, yes. And let's see how good I can drive with the red boxes. Let's make this box a little bit longer. So there we go. There's an idea. By having all of these projects separate, by having individual divisions underneath, there might be a research and design R&D division in there as well. We're creating silos. All right. So I hate working in an open plan office because I just hate working in an open plan office. But for certain jobs, it is actually a good thing. All right, because you're listening to your co-workers and you know exactly when they are playing on Facebook. You sort of can have input in the way that they solve problems. And while they're on the phone discussing a problem with a subcontractor, for instance, you might be listening in on the conversation, and you might already have a solution for that. All right, so the same happens over here. Because it's in silos, technology will typically not develop as quick as in another organization. All right, so let's move on to the next one, the matrix. All right, so this one is it can be a really good management tool, but it has to be really well accepted. Everybody needs to know exactly how it works. There needs to be really clear communication channels. It sort of suffers the moment when you introduce somebody that's really autocratic. And of course, there's definitely going to be some loyalty required on each of these. So if we look at a little diagram for a matrix structure, so there's one example of a matrix. So we can see there's basically our project manager or manager of different projects over here. Let's see if I can draw a line there. There we go. There's our red box. And there's some divisions. All right, so there's our marketing division. Let's just do that line over there. And there's our engineering division. And, of course, there's our construction as well. And there might be a host of other functions. Let's just draw a few other functions in there. There might be marketing, human resources. All of those other guys might sit over there on the side. And what do you see if you just look at the sketch, what's one of the main issues that we have with a matrix organization? Is it a good approach for a construction company? Any ideas? Any takers for this one?
I'd say no. Well, marketing side, yes, but then your engineering construction side, no.
All right, and why do you say that, Benton?
Because when you're on a construction project, you do need more of the autocratic of the construction project manager as opposed to client, but construction project manager needs to control everyone in his team, and they need to be reporting to him first and foremost before anyone else.
All right, so there we go. That's a really, that's a good approach.
So, but then marketing and other functions at the head office space, then they would be matrix style out to each project. QA, so your QA manager, safety managers, they then slot into a matrix style structure.
All right. Any other takers for that one? All right, so what is happening is, let's just draw a line there. Let's see how good I can draw. And you can see there, this is typically what's going to start happening. You are going to start competing for those different resources. So yeah, I agree with what Brenton has said. A function like, for instance, marketing might be a good share opportunity. So this one, yeah, we can share it across the company, but when it comes to engineering and construction, it becomes difficult because we have multiple project managers sitting over here on the side, and the project managers are going to demand time from our engineering division and our construction division, but our engineering and construction division is obviously also going to have to report back to our chief executive, and who is the boss at the end of the day. All right, so let's have a quick look at an example of a strong matrix organization. So again, there you can see there's what we've done now is we've added a line. So we've defined our project coordination line. Our project manager has some designated staff members. All right, so the staff members in red, they all belong to that specific project, and therefore he has access to those resources. In this case, he doesn't have to compete for the resources, making it a little bit easier. All right, on this one, these staff members still have to, let's see if I can draw some lines, and I'll maybe just make it nice and thin. So these guys are still going to, that line went way too far. These guys are still going to have to respond to their functional manager, but they are also going to respond to our project manager over there. All right, so there we can see that's why we call this one a straight, or not a straight, a strong matrix organization. You can see it's been a long day as well. A strong matrix organization, making our project manager more successful, stand-up type of guy. All right, so if we look at a weak matrix structure, there's an example of our weak matrix structure, and you can see there we don't have specific resources allocated to our project leader. All right, so our project manager sits over there. He is going to compete for resources over there, and the same with those resources over there. And we've got another project manager sitting on this side, and he's going to do the same. So we're going to see there's a lot of infighting between all of these different resources, and our project managers at the end of the day might not be friends when it comes to having that beer on a Friday afternoon. All right, so a few of the advantages, disadvantages of a matrix organization. Yes, it can work. It's easy if you've got a strong matrix because you've got some dedicated resources available. The downside is it's difficult to figure out the reporting structure, and also reasonably difficult to control if you allow it to run away. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of these disadvantages. You've got the slides. You can think about the approach that you're going to take for those questions that we have in in the assessment item. So the areas where we run into problems with a matrix structure is, of course, communication, all right, and who is responsible for what, which project manager is going to do what, what responsibility is going to be assigned to which project manager, and of course, how do we decide what the requirements are in terms of resources, when are we going to share it, who gets preference to it, what's the performance going to be like, can we take a resource off a single project and take it onto another one, which one is more serious than the other. So for a matrix organization, we definitely need people to be trained, right? So we need people to understand exactly how business is done in terms of a matrix organization. Lots and lots of communication and training must be accepted, right? So we need people to be really acceptive of the training, and then of course defining the roles and responsibilities. All right, so there's our matrix organization. I've got a few other slides that's on the handout that I've given you guys. Let's just quickly run through them. There's another example of our project management structure, and this one typically with our director of project management. And you can see this one is a strong matrix. All right, is it a strong matrix? Who agrees? Strong matrix, yes or no? And remember, this might be a trick question. If we have, all right, so no, it's not a strong matrix. Yes, correct, it's not a strong matrix. Why not? Because we don't have dedicated resources available to each of our projects over here. So these guys are going to compete. Therefore, it's not going to be a dedicated or a strong matrix. So matrix organizations can easily, sort of spiral out of control. And the reason for that is basically because the reporting lines become blurred. So it's difficult to manage the reporting lines. Decision making is also an issue because who reports to who. We've got limited resources that work on different projects, and of course we've got multiple managers that's going to influence or try and influence each of the outcomes for our projects. Right, so basically everything here in the yellow cloud, those are the things that you want to focus on when you look at matrix organizations. If you can overcome those, then of course it becomes easier to clarify and use it as a management tool. So our RAM over there is also going to be an interesting tool that will help us to clarify the roles and responsibility. I'm sure all of you guys have worked with a responsibility assignment matrix before. Not going to spend too much time on that. All right, so there we go, the balancing of the technical and the human skills. Now, this is the question that I asked you guys way in the beginning. Do you want a project manager that is focused on technical skills, or do you want a project manager that is focused on, sort of the soft stuff? And everybody agreed that we wanted somebody that's going to be human orientated or people soft skill orientated. And let's just say our president tonight is going to be our project manager. He is going to sit over there, and you can see there that the human skills for our project manager, let's see if I can draw a line over there, sits way up there, so really high. There's our little cross point. That's quite a beautiful cross that I've got there, and you can see that's how that one works out. All right, so when we look at the factors for selecting an organizational form, again, no real right and wrong answer. Project size, complexity, all of those issues that we've discovered or discussed earlier on, the philosophy and procurement structures or strategies that we're going to focus on will have an influence. Obviously, if you're going to have a project in Nigeria, for instance, it's going to be completely different to how we're going to do it in Australia. In Australia, a matrix organization might work really well, but in Nigeria, because of the changes in culture, the lack of resources, lack of skill, obviously a matrix organization won't work there. There you want something traditional, basically autocratic, somebody that can shout and scream and maybe shoot somebody if the need arises. You won't do that in Australia, now would you? Let's have a quick look at some other alternatives. There's our strategic business unit. These are not typically found in terms of construction, right? So, but you can see there's different ways of looking at it. So we might have, I used to work for a large construction company in South Africa, which is now gone defunct, Concor Holdings, and they allowed each of the projects to become small business units. Right, and each of these business units had responsibility for reporting, financial performance, and it actually worked out quite well. Unfortunately, I left the company a number of years before they ran into problems due to the global economic crisis. All right, so let's have a look at how infrastructure projects and contractual relationships sort of fit together. So this is sort of introducing next week's topic already. We are going to look at the different contractual relationships next week. But here you can see we've got our clients. So what I want you guys to think about for next week is exactly how are we going to approach a different project. So read through the assessment items and then start thinking about, what's the best solution. Obviously, the things that we want to think about is the different types of agreements that we're going to have. We have service level agreements over there, and remember, in this case, agreements and contracts might be the same thing. All right, so are they going to be professional services? Are they going to be straightforward construction contracts? Are they going to be design contracts, design and build? Are they going to be EPC or EPCM? And what's the implication for each of our role players? All right, so others might be anybody that's not defined in terms of a contract, all right, other stakeholders, but we might have agreements over here with our consultants. All right, so when we talk about consultants, typically we're talking about professional services. When we talk about our contractor, we're typically going to start thinking about those AS contracts, the execution type contracts. When we look at the user on this side, our service level agreement, memorandum of understanding sits on that side. All right, so more about that stuff next week. Something else that I want you guys to think about when you do that assignment is the communication lines. All right, so where's the formal lines, where's the formal relationships, who's reporting to who, and of course, what's the influence of our informal relationships. All right, so basically that is what I wanted to cover with you guys tonight. We've done really well. Sorry it's taken so much time. Any questions? All right, so red cross means no questions. We've got no questions from Brenton, Michael, Charmaine, nothing from you guys. All right, so I think the reason why you guys don't have any questions is, of course, it's already very late in the night. So yeah, I wanted to get through a number of these topics. Next week is also a busy week, but next week's quite an interesting week. We're going to start looking at the contracts, so something to look forward to. When you guys read ahead, start thinking about questions that you want to ask, or if you want me to handle specific items in the session, maybe just post them to the Q&A forum. All right, so if we don't have any other questions, I might just stop our recording over here, if I can find the button.
Recording stopped.
And there we go. So that's the end of tonight. See you guys next week.
Thanks, Josh. See you later.
Cheers. Thanks, man.